The transport ship, Echo 12, flew silently across the black sky, leaving the bright blue planet behind in the small cabin. 4 young cadets sat strapped into their seats. Each wore a gray training suit, a light helmet, and a nervous expression. Final. Checks complete, the pilot's voice said from the speaker. You're landing in 5 minutes. Good luck out there. The 4 cadets looked at one another. They were young, smart, and ready, or so they thought. Tom, the group leader, was calm and focused. He had short brown hair and a strong jaw. Next to him sat Mira, a quiet girl with sharp eyes and quick hands. Luis, the tallest of them, leaned back with a grin, acting more relaxed than he felt. Dana, the tech expert, checked her scanner again and again, her fingers moving fast. The training mission was simple on paper. Survive for 7 days on Moon Gray 9, a once-active terraforming zone. Their goal was to walk across 50 kilometers of open ground and reach an old research station. There would be no help, no supplies, and no second chances. The ship landed with a low thud. Welcome to Gray 9, the pilot said. See you in a week if you're still standing. The hatch opened with a hiss. Ash and dust blew inside as the cadets stepped out. The moon's surface looked dead. It was covered in gray powder, broken rocks, and strange black trees that had never grown leaves. The air was thin, so they wore oxygen masks, even inside their helmets. Let's set up base for the night, Tom said, scanning the area. They found a dry cave nearby and placed their small energy shield at the entrance. Inside, they rolled out sleeping mats and unpacked rations. As they worked, Mira noticed something glowing faintly under a rock. She called Dana over. What is it? Dana asked. I don't know, Mira replied. It's soft, like a fungus. Dana pulled out a sample tube and carefully scooped the glowing material into it. It gave off a faint blue light and tiny white threads. Looks like a spore, Dana said. But it's not active. Maybe dead. Tom walked over. Don't touch it with your hands, he warned. Just store it. We'll study it later. That night, they sat together inside the cave, eating protein cubes and dried fruit. Luis tried to make jokes, but the strange silence of the moon made everyone uneasy. Outside the cave, the sky was black with no stars. The surface glowed slightly, with scattered patches of blue, just like the spore Mira had found. What kind of moon has glowing fungus? Luis asked. Terraforming gone wrong. Dana replied. This place was part of Project Greenlight. Remember, they tried to grow a whole ecosystem here. Trees, moss, even animals. But something failed. Why'd they abandon it? Mira asked. No one knows. Tom answered. Maybe we'll find out when we reach the old station. They slept in shifts, with one person always awake. Tom took the first watch, sitting near the entrance with his scanner. The wind outside was dry and soft, like sand blowing across glass. Nothing moved. But Tom felt uneasy. The spores, they were supposed to be dead. Why were they glowing? The next morning they woke early and packed up. Each cadet carried a pack with supplies, food, water filters, tools, and small weapons for defense. The energy shield folded into a disc and was strapped to Tom's back. Distance to the station is 47 kilometers, Dana said, checking her scanner. At this pace, 3 days walking, maybe 4. Then let's get moving, Tom said. The terrain was rough. Sharp rocks stuck out of the ground like broken bones. The path led them through dried riverbeds and across open plains covered. In Ashdod by midday, they reached a narrow canyon. Its walls rose high on both sides, and the shadows inside looked cold and deep. Tom stepped first, testing the ground. Watch your step, he warned. One by one, they entered the canyon. Halfway through, Tom slipped. His boot caught on a rock, and he fell hard, scraping his arm on the wall. You okay? Luis asked, helping him up. Tom nodded, but his sleeve was torn. A small cut on his forearm bled slightly. Dana cleaned it with a wipe and covered it with a bandage. Looks fine, she said. Just be careful. They moved on, unaware that something small, something nearly invisible had entered Tom's wound. Second night they set up camp in another cave, deeper this time. The glowing spores were everywhere now, on rocks and cracks, even floating lightly in the air. "Don't breathe them in," Mira warned. She handed out filters to everyone. That night, Dana looked closely at the spore sample again. It had doubled in size. "That's not possible," she said. Mira came over. "What do you mean?" "I stored this in a sealed tube. No light, no heat, no water. It shouldn't grow. But it did," Mira said. Louise stepped in. "Maybe it's feeding on something we don't understand." Tom sat silently in the corner, rubbing his arm. The wound itched. He didn't say anything, but it looked slightly green around the edges. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the cave. A soft rustling, like leaves moving, but faster, like something crawling. They turned off their lights and waited. In the cave's entrance, they saw thin black vines creeping slowly over the edge of the shield. One of them touched the energy field and sparked. It pulled back, then tried again. "It's testing us," Mira whispered. Tom grabbed his weapon. "Get ready. Don't let it inside." The vines moved back, and silence returned. But none of them slept that night. Morning comes again. When they stepped out of the cave, they saw the truth. The spores were not just floating or glowing. They were growing across the plain. Small towers of fungus rose from the ash, pulsing slowly like living hearts. The black trees they had passed earlier were now covered in soft, white threads. "This moon is alive," Dana said. Tom looked at the distance marker. "Station's still 3 days away. We move now, or we don't move at all." They walked faster, but behind them, the spores grew taller, and something was following them. The sky over Moon Gray 9 was still dark. The sun never truly rose here. It only gave a soft orange glow at the edge of the horizon. The 4 cadets moved fast across the rocky plain. The wind had changed. It now carried something with it. A smell, a sound, a feeling. Tom walked in front, holding his scanner. His arm itched under the bandage. He didn't tell the others. But the green color had spread overnight. It wasn't painful, only strange, like his skin was not fully his anymore. Behind him, Mira moved with her eyes wide open, always scanning the landscape. She didn't trust the stillness around them. Dana checked her sensor every few minutes. It showed strange heat patterns under the surface. Luis, walking at the back, kept turning to look behind them. "I feel like we're being watched," Luis said softly. "We are," Mira replied without turning. "The spores are watching, listening, maybe even thinking." Tom stopped walking. "We'll rest in the next ridge. I need to check the map." They reached a small rock ledge and crouched behind it. From there, they could see the next part of their path, flat land filled with strange mushroom-like towers. They had not been there the day before. Dana tapped her helmet. "I swear those things grew overnight." "Not overnight," Mira said. "They weren't there 2 hours ago." The group went silent. Louise broke it with a forced laugh. "Okay. So, glowing mushrooms growing like weeds. No big deal." Then they heard it, a low hum, soft at first, then rising, like hundreds of insects buzzing together. It came from the mushrooms ahead. Dana scanned them. They're releasing spores into the air. "We need to go around," Tom said. "Stay low. Use the cliffs as cover." They moved fast, staying behind rocks and avoiding open ground. But even in the shadows, the spores floated around them like tiny bits of snow. They wore their masks tight, but it didn't feel safe anymore. Halfway through the detour, Tom suddenly dropped to his knees. "Tom," Mira ran to him. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Just dizzy." Dana scanned him. "Your vitals are changing. Fast." Tom looked up. His eyes were slightly yellow now. "It's the cut. I think it's infected, but not in a normal way." Luis looked around nervously. "What if the spores are using you?" Tom took a deep breath. "Let's keep moving. I'll hold on." The canyon attacked. They reached another canyon, a narrow one this time, only 10 meters wide and 20 deep. They decided to cross quickly. Tom took the lead again, even though his steps were slower now. Luis followed him, then Dana. Mira came last, always watching the rear. Halfway through, a sound made them all stop, a slithering noise. From above, they looked up and saw something drop from the canyon wall. It was made of black vines. White threads and glowing blue eyes. It had no face, no mouth, but it moved like a hunter. It dropped straight onto Luis. He screamed and fought back, hitting the thing with his backpack. The creature wrapped vines around him. Dana shouted and pulled her small laser tool, slicing at the tentacles. Mira ran forward, throwing a flare at the creature. The fire made it shriek, not with sound, but with a pulse that hit their helmets like a wave of static. The creature let go of Luis and pulled back up the canyon wall. They fired flares at it until it vanished. Luis sat on the ground, shaking. His leg was bleeding. The vines had left deep marks. Tom leaned over him, breathing hard. "You all right?" "I think so," Luis said. "But that thing, it wasn't just a plant, it learned." Mira said softly, "It watched our shield last night. Now it attacked without touching fire." Dana nodded. "And it didn't die when we burned it, just escaped." They helped Luis stand and moved again, faster now. The path ahead was rocky and harder to cross, but they couldn't stop. Not after what they had just seen. The truth about the Sporsby evening. They reached a wide field with no cover. The sky was even darker now. Strange lights blinked in the distant pale green and red dots across the horizon. Dana pulled out the spore sample again. She had stored it in a sealed tube. But now, it was too big for the container. The white threads were pushing against the glass. Trying to escape, she placed it on the ground and stepped back. "This is not a normal life form." Mira crouched beside her. "What is it?" "I think it's a thinking plant," Dana said. "It doesn't grow. It spreads. It adapts. It changes shape when we fight it. It reacts." Tom stared at the sample. "A hive mind," Dana nodded slowly. Maybe something worse. It doesn't need air, food, or water. It feeds on heat, or us." Luis looked up. "So, it's not just dangerous, it's smart." They all went quiet. Then Mira said something no one wanted to hear. "I don't think the station will be safe anymore." The chase begins to be packed up and started walking again. Tom's condition was worse. His skin under the suit was changing color. He moved slower now, but he didn't complain. Suddenly, Dana's scanner beeped. "Something's moving behind." "US," she said. "Multiple targets. Fast." Mira turned around. In the distance, they saw shapes black, tall, and thin. They didn't run. They slid, like living shadows moving over the land. "Run," Tom shouted. They moved as fast as they could. Luis limped. Dana helped him. Mira covered the rear, shooting flares into the air. The flare fire didn't hurt the creatures anymore, but it slowed them. They didn't like heat. Tom stumbled. Mira grabbed his arm. "You're not falling here." They kept moving until they reached a large stone crater. Inside it, they found a few old metal walls, what remained of a supply post from years ago. They rushed inside and set the energy shield around it. The creatures stopped outside the barrier. They didn't try to enter this time. They waited. Watching. Learning. The night grows quiet inside the broken post. The 4 cadets sat on the cold ground. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Tom said, "We're not on a training mission anymore." Dana looked at the others. "I think this is why they left this moon. They didn't destroy the spores. They just ran. And now," Mira added, "we're the ones stuck here." Tom stood, even though he was shaking. "We keep moving. We reach the station. Maybe there's still something there. Maybe a way to stop this." Outside, the spore creatures circled slowly around them, silent, patient, like they knew the game had only just begun. The sky above Moon Gray 9 stayed dark and heavy. The 4 cadets were hiding inside a half-broken supply post. The metal walls creaked in the wind, and the floor was covered in dust. Outside, the strange spore creatures waited, just beyond the edge of the energy shield. Tom leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His skin looked pale. A green line now crawled from his arm up toward his neck. Still, he tried to stay strong. "We can't stay here," Mira said, loading her flare launcher. "They're not leaving. They're just watching us. They're waiting for the shield to run out," Dana added. "Once the battery dies, we'll be open." Luis sat on the ground, his leg bandaged. He had trouble walking. Then we need to move before that happens. Tom pushed himself up. We go now. The old research station is only 2 days away if we take the direct route. Direct route goes through the spore fields, Dana reminded him. No more detours, Tom said. We've seen what happens when we try to avoid them. They find us anyway. The others nodded. They packed quickly, leaving behind anything they didn't need. The air outside felt thicker now, like it was full of invisible threads. The creatures didn't move as the cadets stepped out, but they're glowing. Blue eyes followed every motion. Mira fired a flare high into the air. It exploded with a loud crack, lighting up the area for a few seconds. The creatures pulled back. Just for a moment. Go, Tom shouted. They ran. Crossing the spore fields were not just full of fungus. They were alive. The ground was soft, covered in white fuzz that sank under their boots. Strange mushroom towers stood tall, swaying even though there was no wind. As the cadets moved through, the ground under their feet pulsed slightly, like a heartbeat. This place is wrong, Louise said, leaning on Dana for support. Keep going, Mira said. No one stops. Tom walked at the front, slower now. His infection was spreading, but he said nothing. His fingers were turning green. The spore inside him was changing him, but his mind was still his. For now, suddenly. Dana's scanner beeped. Movement underground. They stopped just as a thick vine shot out of the ground, grabbing at Luce's foot. Mira reacted fast, cutting it with her flare knife. It shrieked and pulled back. All around them, the spores woke up. Dozens of small creatures, made of black vines and white threads, crawled out of the fungus. Some had long limbs. Others had spinning heads. None of them looked human, but all of them were fast. Run, Tom shouted again. They pushed forward, blasting the creatures with flares. Dana used her scanner to find the path with the least movement. Mira carried Luce's pack so he could move faster. The spores attacked like a wave, but they were not organized. They came from all sides, without plan or shape. Still, one of them reached Dana and wrapped around her waist. She screamed, falling. Tom didn't hesitate. He tackled the creature, pulling it off her. It wrapped around his chest. But he threw himself onto a sharp rock, crushing it. Green fluid leaked from his suit, not just from the creature, but from his own skin. Tom. Dana cried. I'm fine, he lied. Keep going. They finally reached a rocky slope, too steep for the spore creatures to climb. They climbed up, one by one, Mira helping Louise last. From the top, they looked back. The field below was moving like it breathed. They're growing faster, Dana said. And learning. A new problem at the top of the slope. They rested inside a crack in the rocks. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. Louise was shaking from exhaustion. Dana's suit was torn. Tom sat in the corner, his face pale, sweat pouring. Down. You need rest, Mira told him. I need time, he whispered. But we don't have it. Mira knelt beside him and gently pulled up his sleeve. The green infection had spread over his whole arm. It pulsed slowly, like it was alive. Is it hurting you? She asked. No, Tom replied. Not yet, but I can feel it. Thinking. Dana turned sharply. Thinking? Tom nodded slowly. It wants control. It's watching us through. Me. The cave went quiet. Then we can't wait anymore, Mira said. We reach the station by tomorrow. Louise looked worried. Can we make it in one day? We have to, Dana said. Or we lose him. Nightfall and strange lights that night. They didn't sleep. They kept watches, taking turns. The spores were not near them now, but the moon felt too quiet. No wind, no sound. Just silence and strange green lights blinking in the distance. Dana looked at the sample she still carried. It had cracked the glass now. Tiny white threads reached through the air. She wanted to throw it away, but she couldn't. It was their only clue. This thing, it's not just a plant, she whispered to Mira. It's part of something bigger. A full mind, like a brain. Made of roots, Mira nodded. And we're inside it. Morning pushed. They moved early. The path to the station was rocky and full of sharp cliffs. No more fields, no more open ground, but danger still followed them. Tom walked slower now. His steps were unsure. Sometimes He paused and looked around like he was hearing something no one else could. Tom, Mira said gently, we're almost there. I know, he whispered. But it knows to. Halfway through a narrow path, they found a strange object in the middle of the road. A helmet, old, covered in moss. Luis picked it up. There was another team here. They looked around and saw more signs, broken gear, burnt pieces of metal, even bones. Someone else tried. Dana said, and failed. Mira looked ahead. We won't lose this sacrifice. We're almost there. The station was just beyond a high ridge. They could see the metal walls in the distance, half covered in growth. Then the ground behind them exploded. Dozens of spore creatures burst from the earth, faster than before. They had long arms and no faces. Their bodies moved like water. They followed us, Dana shouted. They ran up the ridge, but Luis couldn't keep up. Go, he yelled. I'll hold them. No. Mira shouted back. Luis pulled a flare pack from his bag. You have to reach the station before they could stop him. He ran down the ridge, throwing the flare pack into the air. It exploded in bright fire, lighting up the creatures. They swarmed him, and he disappeared into the light. Mira cried out. Tom pulled her back. He gave us time, Tom said. Don't waste it. The station. They reached the edge of the old research station as the light faded. The walls were cracked and covered in fungus, but the door still stood. Inside, there might be answers. Inside, there might be hope. Tom leaned on the wall, breathing hard. We're not done yet. Dana looked back once more at the ridge. No, she said. Now the real fight begins. The research station stood like a half-buried skeleton on the edge of the ridge. Its metal walls were rusted, broken in places, and covered with white threads of fungus. The doors were bent but still upright. A cracked solar panel blinked faintly on the roof. Mira, Dana, and Tom stood outside the entrance, breathing hard. We made it, Mira whispered. Dana looked behind them. The ridge was quiet. No spore creatures had followed them yet, but she knew they were out there, waiting. Let's go inside, Tom said. His voice was weak, his skin pale. The green infection now spread across half of his neck and face. His eyes still looked human, but barely. Mira helped him forward. The entrance door didn't respond to their code, so Dana pulled out her toolkit and rewired the control box. After a few sparks and clicks, the door opened with a low metallic groan. Inside, the air was dry and stale. Dust floated in thin beams of light that slipped through cracks in the ceiling. Old equipment lay scattered around broken chairs, tipped over desks, faded screens. This place looks dead, Mira said. Let's hope the main server isn't, Dana replied. They moved carefully through the halls, passing empty rooms. Some walls were blackened from old burns, others had deep scratch marks. One corridor was sealed with warning signs in red. Biohazard, do not enter. They didn't stop. The central lab. After climbing down a rusted stairway, they reached the main lab. It was large and dark, but Dana found the backup power switch near the door. When she flipped it, weak lights flickered on above them. A soft hum ran through the floor. The room was filled with old machines. The largest one was a sealed glass chamber in the center. Inside it was a thick ball of white and green matter, dead spores. Frozen in time, Tom walked slowly to it. What is that? Dana read the label. Sproutex, Environmental Growth Unit, Final Test Sample. Mira looked around. This was the heart of the whole project. Dana found the central computer. Covered in dust, she wiped the screen and connected her wrist pad to it. Let's see what secrets you're hiding, she muttered. The screen lit up. A log menu appeared, dates, files, and a red folder marked classified. She clicked it. The truth revealed. These sat in silence as the logs played one by one. Log entry 1122. We've reached 94% growth in just 12 hours. The spores are self-sustaining. They don't need water or air. They even repair themselves. Log entry 1123. Subject shows adaptive behavior. When burned, it regrows stronger. When frozen, it adjusts to survive. We think it can learn. Log entry 1126. Test chamber breach. 2 scientists infected. The spores entered through skin contact. They're alive inside them, Log entry 1127, full lockdown. We tried sonic pulses, but it only made them angry. The spores aren't just reacting, they're thinking. We're leaving the moon. It's too late. The final log was a video. A woman in a white lab coat, face pale with fear. If anyone finds this, run. Sproutex is not a plant. It's a living system. A hive. It wants to grow. And it will use you to do it. The video ended. The weight of the past. No one spoke for a long time. Tom sat on the floor, his hands shaking. They made the spores, and then left them here. Left them to grow. Dana closed her eyes. They didn't destroy it. They locked it away and walked off this moon like it was a failed test. Mira stood up and looked out a cracked window. Now it's awake again. Because we came back. Tom coughed. It was a dry, strange sound. He wiped his mouth. His hand came back. Green, I don't have much time. No, Dana said firmly. We're not giving up. The sonic weapon in the corner of the lab. Behind a sealed door, they found something unexpected, a long case marked emergency use only. Inside was a large metal device, shaped like a rifle, but thicker, with a large coil at its center. A note on it read, Sonic Pulse Disruptor Experimental Only. This must be the weapon they tested. Dana said. Mira picked it up carefully. Do you think it works? Dana read the manual on her wrist pad. It doesn't destroy spores directly. It creates a wide vibration strong enough to crack the crust of the moon. It uses the natural minerals here to carry the wave. So it's not a weapon, Mira said. It's a planet-sized speaker. Tom looked at the sample chamber. If we set it off near a large spore field, maybe the wave could disrupt the whole network. Dana nodded. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. A final plant they spent the next are preparing. Dana rewired the pulse device for wide-range use. Mira found extra power cells and made a stand for it. Tom sat nearby, helping as much as he could, even though his body was failing. You're still with us, Mira said softly. Tom smiled weakly. I'll hold on long enough to finish this. Dana looked at them both. We take it to the largest spore field we saw, the one near the canyon. If we use the moon's crust to spread the pulse, we might reach the entire hive. Mira tightened her grip on her weapon. And if it doesn't work, then we make it work, Dana said. The creatures returned just as they finished charging. The sonic weapon, the lights in the station dimmed, the backup power flickered. They found us. Mira said. Outside the window, dozens of glowing blue eyes appeared. The spore creatures surrounded the building. They were larger now, more solid, more alive. They've been growing, Dana said, feeding off the moon itself. The walls shook. Vines crawled up the metal like fingers. We move now, Tom said, standing up. Mira grabbed his arm. Can you walk? Tom nodded. I'm not done yet. One last step. They opened the back door and slipped into the shadows. The spore creatures didn't chase right away. They seemed to wait, like they were watching what the cadets would do. Dana held the sonic weapon. Mira led the way. Tom followed, breathing heavy, holding a flare in one hand. The station grew smaller behind them. The moon opened up ahead, full of danger, but also full of one last chance. The plan was simple. Reach the canyon, set the device, burn the hive, or die trying. As they moved across the ash-covered plains, Mira whispered, let's show them what humans do when we're cornered. The ground beneath their boots was dry and cracked, the gray ash swirling in small clouds with every step. The four cadets, Tom, Mira, Dana, and the memory of Louise still heavy in their minds, moved steadily toward the canyon, where the largest spore field had been seen. The moon's strange glow pulsed faintly around them, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Tom's body was weak, the infection spreading fast. His greenish skin was no longer just on his arm, it crept up his neck, his face, and his hands. Still, his eyes burned bright with determination. We need to reach the canyon before nightfall, Tom said, voice low but firm. That's where we'll set the pulse device. Mira nodded. She scanned the horizon, keeping her flare launcher ready. The spores won't give up easily. They're smarter now. Dana carried the sonic pulse disruptor carefully. Its metal frame was heavy, the large coil humming softly with stored power. She adjusted the power settings for maximum range, hoping the fragile moon crust would carry the pulse far enough. Luce's sacrifice weighed on them. Without his delay, they wouldn't be here. But every step forward was also a tribute to his courage. A moon Olivia as they approached the canyon, the ground trembled faintly. Tiny cracks spread in the soil, like veins glowing with cold blue light. The spores had transformed the place. Large mushroom towers rose from the ash, some taller than a person. Their tops pulsed softly, releasing more spores into the air. Mira adjusted her mask. This place is a hive, the heart of the spore network. Dana pointed the disruptor at the ground. If I send a pulse now, it should ripple through the moon's crust, like a giant speaker. Tom steadied himself. Let's do it. They spread out, setting up small energy traps around the canyon entrance to distract any spore creatures that might attack. Dana wired the disruptor to a portable power cell she carried in her pack. Mira covered the rear with her flare launcher. Tom held a handheld scanner, monitoring the pulse's power. Ready, Dana said. The Luratom stepped forward and raised his flare high into the air. It exploded with a sharp crack, lighting the canyon in fiery red and orange from the shadows. Vines and spore creatures surged forward, attracted by the heat now. Dana shouted. She activated the sonic disruptor. A low, deep hum started, building quickly. The coil in the device glowed blue-white. The ground beneath them began to vibrate softly. The pulse traveled fast through rock and ash, beneath the spores. Beneath the creatures themselves, the mushroom towers shook as if caught in a giant earthquake. The spores screamed if they could scream, sending waves of spore dust and shrieking noise through the air. The vines writhed, some bursting into glowing dust, chaos and courage, but the moon fought back. The ground cracked and shifted violently. Large chunks of rock broke free and crashed around the cadets. Mira fired flares at approaching creatures. The fire slowed them but did not stop their advance. Tom gritted his teeth. His infected skin felt hotter now. The pulse seemed to be fighting the infection inside him as well. Dana worked the disruptor's controls, increasing the pulse's strength. It's working, but the moon can only take so much. The shaking grew stronger. The moon groaned, and dust rose in giant clouds. Some spores shriveled, others exploded. Suddenly, a large vine lunged at Dana. She dodged, but it wrapped around her leg, pulling her down. Dana? Mira yelled. Tom ran forward, cutting the vine with a sharp blade from his belt. Dana got up, breathing hard. We don't have much time. The breaking point. The pulse reached its peak. The moon cracked loudly beneath their feet. A deep quake rumbled across the canyon. The spores fought back fiercely, but their hive mind was breaking apart. The mushroom towers collapsed one by one. The thick vines withered and fell. Tom took a step forward, clutching his chest. The infection pulsed violently beneath his skin, then suddenly stopped. His color began to return to normal. It's retreating, he whispered. The moon seemed to settle, the tremors fading. Escapee cadets didn't wait to see more. We move now, Mira shouted. They ran toward the ridge, away from the collapsing spore field. Behind them, the moon shook again, sending dust and debris into the sky. The spore creatures screamed in anger, but could not follow. The pulse had cut their connection, breaking their hive mind. Tom stumbled, but Mira caught him. We made it, Dana said, smiling despite her exhaustion. The rescue beacon in Tom's pack blinked steadily now. Aftermath back at the supply post. They rested. The air felt clearer. The spores were no longer everywhere. Tom looked at his hands. Normal skin was returning. The infection was retreating. We did it, Mira said softly. Dana nodded. Human ingenuity. We used the moon itself as a weapon. Tom smiled weakly and punked an entire moon. They all laughed quietly, tired but victorious. The errand. The supply post was heavy but quieter than before. The strange green glow of spores had dimmed. The moon's strange heartbeat seemed to slow. Tom sat against the cold metal wall, breathing easier than before. His skin was nearly normal again, the infection retreating. But the danger was not over. Dana checked her scanner. There are still small pockets of spores below the surface. The hive is damaged, but not destroyed. Mira stood by the door, flare launcher ready. If they come back, we'll be ready. Tom looked at both of them. We should finish this. A final mission. The old computer in the research station still had files left unopened. Dana worked on accessing them, hoping to find a way to stop the spores for good. Here, she said, pointing to a folder named Project Greenlight Termination Protocol. They opened the file. Inside was a plan, a last resort measure to release a special chemical into the moon's atmosphere. It was designed to kill all spores and fungi by blocking their reproduction. Mira frowned. Can we make this chemical? Dana shook her head. The lab here doesn't have the resources. But the main ship might. Tom nodded. We can radio the Echo 12. Tell them what we need. The signal. Dana fixed the old comm system. After several attempts, a weak signal was sent out. Minutes later, a crackling voice answered. Echo 12 here. Identify yourself. This is Cadet Tom, with survivors on Gray 9, Tom said, voice steady but tired. We need extraction and support. The voice paused, then answered, understood. Rescue team is en route. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Relief swept through the group. Mira kept watching the horizon. 6 hours is a long time here. New threat. Suddenly, the ground trembled again. Small spores burst through cracks in the walls. The hive was fighting back. We're not done, Dana said, rushing to the sonic disruptor. It was nearly empty. Tom stood slowly. I'll help. Together, they worked fast, trying to charge the device using the station's backup power. The spores advanced in waves. They climbed the walls, creeping closer to the door. Mira fired her flare launcher. Bright explosions lit the room, keeping the spores at bay. Keep going, she yelled. The last pulse. Dana connected the final wire and aimed the disruptor toward the door. A deep hum filled the room. The pulse built. Tom held a broken chair to block the door as vines pushed through. With a bright flash, Dana released the pulse. The room shook violently. The spores screamed and melted into dust. For a moment, everything was still. The silence was thick. The rescue far above on Echo 12, the rescue ship descended slowly. Its powerful sensors detected no dangerous spore activity below. The ship landed, and a team of soldiers in clean suits stormed the research station. They brought new supplies and the chemical needed for the final kill. Tom, Mira, and Dana were helped aboard. They looked back once at the gray moon, now quiet. A new dawn. Days later, aboard the Echo 12. The chemical was released into Gray 9's thin atmosphere. Within hours, the remaining spores stopped glowing. The black trees turned brittle and cracked. The moon began to look like a dead rock again. But the cadets were alive. Human courage, quick thinking, and teamwork had saved them and stopped the threat no one else could. Tom looked out the window at the silent moon. We didn't just survive, he said quietly. We showed that even when the universe throws its worst, humans can fight back. Mira smiled. Human ingenuity just punked an entire moon. Dana nodded. And we're just getting started. The stars outside the Echo 12 glowed softly as the ship cruised through space on the way home. Inside, the air was quiet but filled with relief. The 4 cadets had survived the nightmare on Gray 9, and now they were heading back to tell the story. Tom sat by a window, watching the distant lights of their home planet grow larger. His skin was clear now, the infection gone. The green had faded, but the memory stayed with him. Mira stood nearby, checking their gear. We did what no one else could. Dana looked tired but smiled. We fought the spores with everything we had, and we won. The ship hummed softly, carrying them toward a future no one could predict. The debrief back on Earth, the cadets met with scientists, commanders, and reporters. They shared what they had learned, the danger of the spores, the failure of the first mission, and how human courage and cleverness had stopped a growing threat. Tom told the story of Luce's sacrifice and the pulse weapon that saved them all. Mira spoke about teamwork and never giving up, even when the odds were against them. Dana showed the data from the spores and the chemical that finally killed the hive. Their story inspired everyone. The lessons the military started new research programs to study the spores safely. Scientists learn from the cadets' experience and design better equipment and weapons to fight alien life. The mission changed how humanity looked at space threats. They realized that sometimes the greatest power came not from weapons, but from the mind. The futuredom, Mira, and Dana prepared for their next assignments. They had seen the worst, but they were ready to face whatever came next. I want to explore more, Mira said. Find other strange places, other challenges, Dana nodded. And make sure no one else faces what we did, Tom smiled. We survived because we worked together. That's what makes us strong. A new beginning as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere. The cadets looked out the windows at the blue sky and green lands below. They had changed. The moon had tried to break them, but it had only made them stronger. Mira said quietly, human ingenuity didn't just punk a moon. It punked the whole universe. Tom laughed softly. And this is only the beginning. End of story.